Think you know everything about boating in Florida? Well, let me start off with a question that catches people off guard. Can a casual drink on a boat, a little summertime fun, winter driving down the Florida intercoastal, really turn into criminal charges, even if you feel fine? And the answer is yes. And especially in South Florida, it happens more than you think because boats are always in season down here and enforcement ramps up when the waterways are the busiest. So I'm going to teach you what you need to know to stay safe on Florida's waters in 2026. And you'll understand, hey, what exactly is a BUI? Is it the same as a DUI? Do you have to be over a .08 to be arrested for BUI? And what does a BUI investigation look like on the water? How does Florida's implied consent law work on the water? What are the penalties for a first-time BUI in Florida? And what changed with Florida's Boater Freedom Act? And does it stop BUI enforcement? If I'm stopped on the water, what should I do? So let's dive right in. What exactly is BUI in Florida, and is it basically the same as a DUI? Well, BUI stands for boating under the influence. And yes, conceptually, Florida treats it a lot like DUI or driving under the influence. And so here's the main idea. If you're operating a vessel in Florida and you're impaired by alcohol, drugs, a combination of both, well, you can be arrested and charged with boating under the influence. And that's a real criminal charge. This isn't just a random boating ticket. You can go to jail for this. Now, the next question is one that most people argue about. Do I have to be over .08 to get arrested for BUI? And the answer is no, you don't have to be over .08, which is the legal limit. It's DUI or BUI. And people love that number because it's, for years and decades, we've been told all about that number and the legal limit. But here's what matters. You can be arrested even if you're under the legal limit. Now, how does this work? Well, at first, you're arrested if the officer believes that your normal faculties are impaired. And the decision to arrest you has absolutely nothing to do with the legal limit. It's purely talking about impairment. And that could be alcohol impairment, it could be marijuana impairment, prescription medication impairment. It could be mixing just one drink with that Xanax that you take for anxiety. And on the water, things are wavy. Even in ideal conditions, and you combine that with the heat, right? Our South Florida heat, dehydration, sun exposure, the motion of the ocean. Those things alone can make the average person look impaired. .08 is not a magic legal shield, and hey, officer, I'm fine. Well, that's not a real legal defense either. So now some of you might be thinking, okay, they suspect that I'm impaired. What are they going to ask me to do? So the next question is, what does a BUI investigation actually look like on the water? And now I want you to picture this moment with me. Perfect Florida day. You got some great music, sunshine, friends, the cooler's open. And then all of a sudden you see a little whoop whoop from a police boat coming right on up inside you. And a BUI investigation usually starts with observations from the police, like, well, how are you operating the boat? Are you doing something unsafe? Right? Do you look confused, slow, or uncoordinated? What if there's a boating accident or some kind of violation? Well, as always, it's important to remain calm, polite, and you need to know your rights. And so these investigations usually start the same way as a DUI. You'll see the blue lights pulling up beside you. Maybe you'll hear a siren or the little whoop whoop, and they're going to signal for you to stop. They're going to tell you to idle down, put the engines in neutral, and keep your hands where they can see them. And they're going to ask you things like, well, who's operating the vessel? Where are you coming from? How long have you been out? How much have you had to drink? They're going to be looking at cans, bottles, maybe coolers. Are there any bottles of vodka or any type of alcohol, other alcoholic beverages? And of course, they're going to look for an odor of alcohol, slurred speech, red or glassy eyes, and balance issues, all the while where there's motion in the ocean going on, and how you followed their directions. After that, they're going to ask for your ID, your registration, other basic documents. After this beginning stage, they're going to suspect impairment. Why? Because they always do. Now they're going to ask you to do field sobriety exercises to help determine this impairment. I talk a lot about these FSEs, as they're called when it comes to DUI. And on the roadside, these exercises, they're already controversial. They're already designed to make you fail. But on a boat, it's even messier. Between the wind, the waves, trying to balance or perform any intentional movement, it's going to make a perfectly sober person look awkward and drunk. I see stories like this all the time. There's a popular video of a Florida Fish and Wildlife officer arresting a completely sober church leader in Florida. And they tried to justify this based on seated field sobriety exercise. But in this case, the man's charges were ultimately dropped. But it raised a serious question. What about the people that don't have the money, time, or influence to fight back? So on the water, testing is less controlled, way more subjective, and it's another way for the cops to gather evidence against you. Here's a question that can make a situation go from stressful to life change. How does Florida's implied consent law work on the water? So if you're arrested for a BUI, do you have to submit to a breath or chemical test? Now, Florida's implied consent works on our waterways too. If you're lawfully arrested for a BUI, then the cops can request a breath sample. So let's talk about the consequences, because people get this wrong all the time. What happens if you refuse? Refusing to submit to a BUI test in Florida can affect your ability to operate a boat or carry other consequences. So implied consent applies on the water and refusal can still hurt you. And the next question becomes, what are we really talking about if you get convicted? So what are the penalties for a first BUI in Florida? First time boating under the influence conviction, it's not on a slap on the wrist. Beyond the real legal penalties like jail time, fines, and probation, here's what people don't think about until it's too late. Even if the court part ends, the consequences may not, because this charge can impact your job, your professional license, insurance, your reputation, future background checks. And if there's an accident, injury, or other aggravating factors, that exposure and impact can increase dramatically. This is criminal. It's serious and it can follow you. Now, here's the big change everybody's been asking about lately. What changed under Florida's Boater Freedom Act and how does it stop BUI enforcement? So as of July 1st of 2025, this act changed how vessel stops and boarding work for safety inspections with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation. This is where people get confused. Did Florida just ban random safety stops? Well, not quite. So here's what the law did. As of July 1st, FWC, they can no longer just do a random safety inspection and board your vessel. They're going to need probable cause. So safety equipment issues become secondary offenses, meaning they need a lawful reason to stop you first, and then those safety issues can come into play. FWC in Florida stands for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, a state government agency, and they're responsible for managing Florida's fish and wildlife resources. These are the water cops, so to speak. Until now, they've had tremendous amount of freedom and special rules that I've always said actually violates and infringes upon your constitutional rights. But this alone does not mean that you can't get stopped. It just means that you can't get stopped arbitrarily for what's called a safety inspection. Just like being in a car now, you have to be stopped for probable cause that there's a traffic, or in this case, a boating infraction. Are you recklessly operating the vehicle? Is there wake in a no-wake zone? Do you have an expired registration? All the different things that could go on that could be a boating violation. And this new 2025 Boater Freedom Act, it reduces these, or it's supposed to eliminate these safety-only stops, which we all know is BS, and a pretext for these fish cops to get on your vessel. And that leads us to the most important question in this entire video. If I'm stopped on the water, what should I do? First, we got to get our mind right. Be calm, respectful, and know your rights. You don't lose your constitutional rights because you're on the water. And so you can be polite without being chatty, and you don't have to help build the cops' case against you. So here's what I want you to remember. Be respectful. Arguing never helps. But don't volunteer extras. Small talk or that nervous chit-chat, it turns into admissions fast. So you can ask them, hey, why am I being stopped? If it's turning into a real investigation, don't try to talk your way out. You can always be polite and respectful and just say, no, thank you. You are entitled to ask for an attorney immediately. And the biggest mistake that I see people thinking is that they can explain their way out of this on the road or the water, and that almost never works. So remember, stay calm, be respectful, be informed, know your rights, say less, and get a lawyer. And the bottom line, a day on the water should end with memories, not mugshots. So make a plan, have a sober captain, drink water. Don't underestimate the sun and the motion of the ocean. If you or someone you care about gets hit with a BUI in South Florida, the right lawyer and team can make all the difference in the world. And in this next video, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 things everybody forgets about BUI. I'm Adam Rossen. Stay smart, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next wave.